Well, it's time now for a look at the day's top business news with Brian Quinn.
I do.
And we're starting with some rather encouraging employment numbers just out of the US.
Yeah, the U.S. Labor Department has released its latest monthly jobs report. 850,000 non-farm payrolls added during June. That's well ahead of expectations for just over 700,000. Wages up 0.3% for the month, but up 3.6% compared to a year earlier. That is more or less in line with economists' predictions. One spot for concern, the unemployment rate, which actually rose by 0.1% up to 5.9%. Well, the numbers helping to ease concerns over a labor shortage in the U.S. as hiring picks up in the hospitality and tourism sectors. The country has now recovered around 15.6 million out of the more than 22 million jobs lost during the pandemic. Here's President Joe Biden on that.
We've now created over 3 million jobs since it took office. More jobs than have ever been created in the first 5 months of any presidency in modern history, thanks to the incredible work of the entire team. This is historic progress, pulling our economy out of the worst crisis in 100 years, driven in part by our dramatic progress in vaccinating our nation and beating back the pandemic.
Well, Wall Street certainly pleased as those numbers show the U.S. recovery gathering steam. All major indexes gained ground on Friday. Boeing shares lost about 1.25% after pilots were forced to ditch a 737 cargo jet in the ocean near Hawaii. S&P and the Nasdaq, though, closing at record highs as they gained around 0.75% each. Next, France is gearing up for a record tourist season with more than 80% of French vacationers who might otherwise have gone abroad deciding to stay in the country this summer. Hotels and campsites here are already seeing occupancy rates soar even higher than their pre-pandemic levels. But the tourism industry does have one major challenge, a shortage of seasonal labor, one that's being met in part by students. Catherine Bennett has a story.
In this hotel complex overlooking the Mediterranean, the upcoming summer season is looking busy. In July, 9 out of 10 rooms are already booked. But it's turning out to be difficult to find the staff to clean them. The hotel can't fill 15 posts, and so even managers have to muck in.
In a season like this, where it's proving hard to find workers, we all have to do our part.
France's hotel industry body says that the sector lost 110,000 jobs in 2020 and has already lost 31,000 in the first 3 months of 2021. Many seasonal workers haven't returned this year. Some have decided to retrain or change industry, and many foreign workers are staying away for now. But that's good news for students in France. Jean-Baptiste Albertini was spoiled for choice when he was looking for a summer job.
I applied to quite a few places that all accepted me, but in the end I decided to work here.
Without students, this campsite near Perpignan wouldn't have been able to open.
50%. Half of our staff are students, which hasn't been the case before.
France's tourism industry was already short of workers, and the COVID-19 pandemic has only exacerbated that shortage. Tourism represents 10% of France's GDP. But without the staff to keep it running, the country's economy faces yet another hurdle on the road to recovery.
Well, the EU, meanwhile, is getting set to introduce what it's calling a digital levy on a wide range of companies. Commission Vice President Margrethe Vestager told Reuters Friday that the new charges will cover hundreds of firms, most of them European. The funds collected will be used in part to repay the 750 billion euros that the bloc has agreed to collectively borrow to finance its recovery from the pandemic. The latest reveal comes on the heels of Thursday's announcement by the OECD that 130 nations have agreed to a 15% global minimum corporate tax rate. Vestager hailed that agreement, but she says the new digital levy is a different beast altogether. Here she is.
And where the OECD agreement is for the 100 biggest companies, this is for many, many more companies from, I think mostly Europeans, but from all sides of the world, and has, of course, the potential of financing sort of our common costs of the European Union, among other things, the recovery and resilience plans.
Well, finally, for business, the United Nations Generation Equality Forum wrapped up Friday in Paris. Its goal to promote gender equality. Well, in the U.S., that situation has actually been improving in recent months, particularly within the White House. Female Biden administration staffers earn an average of $93,700 per year, compared with $94,600 a year for the men. That's a gap of less than 1%. Under Donald Trump, that gender salary gap was roughly 30%. Biden made the issue a center point of his campaign, establishing a gender policy council in the White House early on in his term. Seems to be putting his budget where his mouth is. Women currently make up no less than 60% of White House staffers. Little progress there. Still a bit of a gap.
Still a bit of a gap, but still better than nothing. Thank you very much for that. Brian Quinn there with the business. And let's bring you today's focus